crush your enemies.
They drew first blood, not me.
See them driven before you.
Oh, my user.
And hear the lamentation of your women.
But I pity the fool.
Glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate.
Phone home.
They're here.
Oh, real light sleeper, child.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in chronological order, overanalyzing what you've seen and spoiling what you haven't. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today we're discussing The Amateur, released February 12th, 1982. It was written by Robert Littell, based on his own novel, with additional work from Diana Maddox, directed by Charles Jarrott, and released by 20th Century Fox. February 12th. That's like its birthday, right?
Yeah.
That's Lincoln.
I know how to spell Lincoln.
The day The Amateur hit theaters, actor Victor Jory passed away. We've seen Jory thus far in Papillon and The Mountain Man. Spy novelist Robert Littell's novel, The Amateur, a Novel of Revenge, was published in 1981, and within a year he had adapted the story to a screenplay himself. Honestly, not much else in the way of production notes, so I'll mention here that it slots nicely into other spy films we've covered already, like Hopscotch and 3 Days of the Condor. Very similar story.
Yeah. What's funny about the comparison to 3 Days of the Condor, which for me is that I always confuse Max von Sydow and Christopher Plummer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This one has Christopher Plummer in it.
It was a Canadian production, so we have a lot of Canadian regulars among the cast, and come award season, The Amateur was rewarded with 10 Genie nominations, including Best Picture.
What?
But it won nothing.
So you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Perhaps most interestingly, the film is set for an upcoming remake from 20th Century Studios, starring Rami Malek as the titular amateur, with a current scheduled release date of April 25th. 2 days shy of a year from the day this episode is posting.
I mean, maybe a remake would...
I think it could be good.
It has potential. I have no idea what's happening in this movie half the time.
It's also set to star Rachel Brosnahan and Lawrence Fishburne. We open in Washington, D.C. at sunrise.
So we get an establishing shot of D.C.
Yeah.
And it has Washington, D.C. at the bottom. But then it goes into the opening credits.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that was an interesting choice to put
to say the title first.
Before the credits.
Before the credits.
Like it's a member of the cast almost.
Yeah.
John Savage as Charlie Heller opens the curtains of his home office and fills a manila envelope with paperwork. We cut elsewhere, where his girlfriend Sarah is packing up to leave a hotel room. Turns out she's working in Europe as a photojournalist and walks around taking photographs of various landmarks and interesting architecture. Charlie moves through security at CIA headquarters. Back in Europe, Sarah photographs a European cathedral somewhere. I couldn't identify it. I don't even know what country she's in.
I think it's in Munich.
Oh, okay.
I think all this...
I mean, everybody's speaking German in this film, so I assume this is taking place mostly in Germany.
Sure. Charlie checks into work at his high-tech computer desk with monitors in front and behind him. His office supercomputer seems to be nicknamed Bertha.
And there's like a tiny little monitor. He's got a dual monitor setup, but there's like a regular normal monitor for that era, but then like a cash register size screen on the side.
Sarah records a message to Charlie on an audio cassette and drops it in the mail for him.
She drops it in without a case. It's
just
the
a loose tape.
It's just a loose tape. Like, that thing isn't going to survive across the country.
It's like how you could just postmark like fruit, like just stick a label on an apple and send it through the mail.
Later, we see her step off a bus and walk into the American consulate. She shows her passport to security and they wave her inside. As she moves through the lobby, an explosion rocks the office, and when she tries to flee, she is grabbed hard by one of the team of terrorists and shoved back into their hostage pool. A security guard reacts to the situation and is shot in the back by a large bearded terrorist, and a woman with sunken eyes and short hair steps into the hall with an automatic weapon to shoot down all the cameras in the office. Just down the hall, the bearded guy encounters another guard, and they quickly kill each other. The leader of this terrorist squad rushes into the consul's office and orders his hands in the air. This man is led to the lobby with the other hostages.
The bearded guy is the one that looks just like David Harbour.
Right. Yeah.
But he dies. We don't get to see
him
him for the rest of the
He dies very quickly, but he's a cool guy. He's got some cool credits.
Yeah. He's huge, too. You might say he's a beast.
Yeah, some might say that. American Ambassador Neville is put in contact with the terrorist leader, and he presents his demands.
We are now holding as hostages 15 American citizens, 8 Germans, and 3 Austrian nationals. The American military authorities at Ramstein Air Base are to release the 2 freedom fighters they are holding in their prison prior to extradition and trial. They are to bring the 2 freedom fighters here to the American consulate. They are then to make a plane available to me and my comrades to fly to freedom. I shall give them 1 hour to comply with our demands. We permit no bargaining. 1 hour more. If I do not hear from you by then, Mr. Ambassador, that our terms have been accepted, we will begin to execute the hostages. 1 hostage every 15 minutes. So you see, their fate depends on you, all of you. Their blood will be on your hands. I repeat, on your hands.
I hate that line.
It's like, I didn't kill them.
Yeah. It's
You
like,
killed them by letting me kill them.
Yeah, it's...
In private discussions, the American ambassador reminds the local government that the official national policy dictates we don't negotiate with terrorists. Unfortunately, the local government does negotiate with terrorists because the deaths of these hostages is too big a liability to their foreign relations. Do you guys remember the last time we saw Miguel Fernandes playing a terrorist who kidnapped an American abroad, demanding the release of political prisoners and a plane to escape with?
Kidnapping of a president?
That's right.
All right. Okay.
Nice.
As the first hour slowly runs out, the female terrorist glares angrily at Sarah, and when the time officially runs out, the woman is made to pick a passport from a stack at random and just happens to choose Sarah's name. Sarah is led outside as proof of their seriousness. The leader of the terrorists holds her at gunpoint in the open courtyard and even spaces himself apart from her, holding a revolver to her head with his fully outstretched arm. There's almost too much room for sharpshooters to take this guy out, but for some reason they let him pull the trigger and kill her on the steps.
Not just take him out like well before he shoots her, but the moment he's shot her?
Right.
What is his leverage?
How does he make it back into the building?
Why is he not riddled with bullets the second he has killed her?
Because we're supposed to be stunned and watching the woman fall to the ground. We don't care about this now completely unprotected terrorist slowly walking back into the building.
It's not like they made some sort of threat, like if you shoot our guy, we're going to kill more people inside here.
They forgot to specify. It's like, how were we to know? The camera backs up wide to show the body left alone on the ground, and the terrorist calls the ambassador back to remind him of the agreement.
Mr. Ambassador, the next American hostage will be executed in 15 minutes.
Unless you comply with our demands.
Yeah.
We're not going to just keep doing this even if you give us our stuff. Sometime later, we see the terrorists on a bus with the remaining hostages, and a military escort leads them to a plane they can escape in. We cut to Charlie's office at the CIA, where he is informed of his girlfriend's execution. On the news that night, Charlie learns that the plane was flown by 2 volunteer pilots and landed in Prague, where the remaining hostages were released. We cut forward some time to Sarah's body arriving at a snowy airport in a coffin. Her father is here to see it, and evidently this is his first time meeting Charlie.
Sam Kaplan. I recognize you from your photo.
After the funeral, Charlie and Sam get lunch at a barbecue joint. Some kids near their table play an arcade version of something called Sega Astro Data, and it looks like the machine is actually making an analog punch card with data recorded in it. And yes, this is the same Sega that would enter the video game console wars the following year with their SG-1000, and later Sega Genesis, Sega CD, and Sega Dreamcast. Charlie notices the machine on his way out, and the monitor displays the text of a horoscope for Leo. Seductive Leo is even more so, as kindly forces are in your favor. For you, enchanting girl, now is the time to devote yourself totally to love. At month's start, you are attracting more lovers than you can seemingly handle. With Mars energizing work at present, you may feel a little torn, and mid-month may bring further love-career conflicts. But charming Leo always knows how to smooth the way. Look for important encounters at the start of week 3, and think twice about fleeing with a new admirer on the 18th. Also, a win-high-lose-lots day financially. The full moon on the 21st ends this stormy interlude, and from then on, good fortune accelerates.
I tried to read this, but it was too hard to read, and I'm like, Patrick will read it to me.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for, folks. On a walk, Sam asks Charlie what will become of Sarah's possessions, and he promises to sort out her apartment when he returns to D.C. They play a game of chess at Sam's home, and Charlie asks him about some family photos. He learns here that before Sarah was born, her father had a whole nother family killed by the Germans in World War II. Their deaths set Sam on a course for revenge, tracking down the doctor who sent his family to the concentration camps.
Did you find him?
I found him, yes.
What did you do?
I created one last ritual. With these hands, I strangled him.
You didn't bring him back from the dead.
Oh, it brought me back from the dead.
Such a badass line. This is exactly what Charlie needed to hear, and his eyes drift down to the concentration camp number tattoo on Sam's wrist. We see Charlie stop by his P.O. box, where he finds the envelope from Sarah with her voice recording. He pours himself a glass of wine before listening to it at home that night. That's pretty brave. I feel like, first of all, it would take me a long time to commit to listening to this.
Yeah.
Definitely wouldn't trust myself with a bottle of wine to listen to this. She tells him all about her adventures abroad and mentions that her assignment might end early so they could see each other sooner than expected. Obviously, he sobs while he listens, and we cut to him back in the offices of the Central Intelligence Agency. It sounds like he's here demanding action be taken to track down the people responsible for Sarah's murder, but they insist nothing can be done.
I understand how you feel, I assure you, but you have to take into consideration certain realities of the situation.
The reality is that she was an American citizen, that it was a political assassination. But you still tell me that nothing can be done. The CIA, this whole vast organization, of which you are the head, Mr. Brewer, is powerless and can do nothing. The CIA is powerless.
An uncomfortable flavor of exposition to that.
Yeah.
Brewer explains that Horst Schraeger, the leader of these terrorists, has close ties to the KGB, and an overreaction on their part could have global ramifications. Charlie recommends sending a kill squad to Czechoslovakia, and they don't dignify the suggestion with a response. Next, Charlie speaks with his direct supervisor, Rutledge, played by George Coe. Rutledge agrees with Brewer that the agency's hands are tied in this situation. Rutledge gives Charlie contact info for a psychiatrist with full security clearance in case he needs someone to talk to, and offers him a bit of paid leave from his work decoding ciphers on the Big Bertha computer system. Do you guys recall the last time we saw John Savage and Big Bertha in a film together?
Was it Kidnapping of a President?
No. John Savage was not in that one.
What movie has he been in?
He's been in 2 movies prior to this. One of them was called Inside Moves, and one of them was called Catalani and Little Britches.
Oh, that's right.
Was there a Big Bertha in that one?
You tell me.
I don't know.
Which movie?
Catalani.
Wrong.
Damn it.
Yeah, it's got to be Inside Moves.
Yeah, it's Inside Moves.
Good job, Richard.
Excellent deductive reasoning.
Yes.
I think there might have been another John Savage movie, but those are the only 2 I'm coming up with off the top of my head. Savage is obviously that film's lead, and for one scene, they're moving through a crosswalk, and they pass actress Francesca P. Roberts in her first credited role as Hooker, but she would later go on to appear in 1993's Super Mario Brothers movie as Big Bertha, the bouncer at the Boom Boom Bar.
I was supposed to make that connection?
Yes, you were, because I did.
You're a jerk.
I watched the movie, and I was like, Big Bertha. Remember the last time I had a Big Bertha? Oh my God, John Savage was in that movie too. I can ask the last movie that had John Savage and Big Bertha. And looking at her IMDb page, she also shows up as the health inspector in classic Always Sunny episode Charlie Work, which is a great one if you haven't seen it. Speaking of Charlie Work, on his way home from work, Charlie stops at a magazine stand and reads an article that seems to condone the acts of these revolutionary forces. That night, he keeps picturing Sarah's death in his head, and he digs deeper into the magazine, putting a plan together.
I didn't look up to see if these were actual publications, because there were some actual publications on this newsstand.
Yeah, it looks like a Soldiers of Fortune look-alike, basically.
Yeah, but it was like report, news, weekly business.
Very exciting stuff. The next day, he checks in again with Rutledge to accept the offer of paid leave, but asks to retain his computer access so he can come in after hours to work on a novel he's writing on the history of ciphers, since he keeps a lot of personal info on his work computer, which I feel like would be against the rules at the CIA.
Yeah, especially at the CIA. I mean, it's against the rules at every company I've ever worked at.
It's like, you can do that, but we also own the rights to whatever novel you're writing.
Exactly. But I guess he does say that it'll be a feather in the CIA's cap. I mean, it could be like a Jack Ryan, like he writes.
Oh, okay, yeah,
he writes
sure.
books for the CIA.
Yeah.
Like a recruitment tool.
In particular, he claims to have stumbled upon a potential coded message in a letter from Mary, Queen of Scots, that appears to call for the assassination of Queen Elizabeth, but he wants to run the letter through Big Bertha, the supercomputer, in case he's overlooking something.
He just bombards Rutledge with nerd speak.
But I want to run that through Big Bertha, see if I can find any acrostic, agrotalistic, or numerical sequences that I can
sounds
then
fascinating. It's a little bit over my head, Heller, but...
get to the more complicated stuff with Bacon's bilateral ciphers, Elizabethan substitution systems.
Well, that should be a
and
real
Bacon's
feather in the company's cap when you get that published. I tell you what, I'll have Nora type up the authorization for you today, Heller. Okay?
Thank you.
Rutledge is clearly bored by Charlie's overcomplicated explanation, but assures him the finished book will make the agency proud. Once allowed back into his office, he scribbles something on his whiteboard. My lord, I do beseech you to study well the words that I do write below. His face the print would then surpass, all that was e'er writ in brass. But since he cannot, reader look, not on his picture, but the book. This message comes from a poem by Ben Jonson from Shakespeare's First Folio, a collection of Shakespeare's plays published in 1623, though Charlie ends the quote with the book in place of his book. Whoopsie doodle.
Maybe that was part of the cipher.
Ah, I meant to do that. Charlie collects some books out of his office safe and then spends hours printing data out of the Big Bertha computer. It looks like a collection of government files on the specific terrorist cell that killed Sarah. What he uncovers is that the CIA is refusing to retaliate against the group because they actually have ties to the group's origins. He meets again with Sam and says he left a treasure trove of government secrets with a friend as a dead man switch so he can blackmail the CIA into training him to avenge Sarah. If Charlie is dead or incapacitated in the next 3 months, Sam is to call Charlie's friend and recite the digits of his Holocaust tattoo, which Charlie has employed as a cipher key for the encrypted government secrets. We cut now to the Pick and Chicken barbecue, where Charlie and Sam ate after Sarah's funeral, and Charlie has broken into the disassembled Sega Astro data machine to upload a copy of all the government files into its database. We cut forward again, and Charlie is meeting with Molton, the friend he has instructed to collect the key from Sam Kaplan in the event Charlie is disappeared by the government. The next day, Charlie goes back to CIA head Brewer with a printout of all the top-secret incriminating files. Brewer chastises Charlie for his unrefined approach, but Charlie has all the leverage he needs to make demands of the agency now. Brewer's second-hand man, Agent Porter, tries to predict Charlie's demands.
It's about the terrorists.
Right.
He wants them killed.
Wrong. I want to kill them myself.
Because Charlie is a desk jockey for the agency, he will require extensive training and transportation to pull this mission off single-handedly. The agency bigwigs meet in private to find a way out of this deal. Brewer refuses to be blackmailed in front of the entire CIA, and so decides they will agree to train Charlie, but to drill him so hard that he washes out of the program voluntarily. At the very least, it will waste time until they can locate wherever he has hidden this embarrassing data. Charlie reports to Colonel Anderson, played by Ed Lauter, for training.
You're being sent into Czechoslovakia to assassinate 3 people. What do you know about firearms?
Almost nothing.
Which is very unlikely. I think
you're in the CIA and you don't know how to shoot a gun?
I think you have to get some kind of training.
Yeah. But then, I mean, that was kind of the point in 3 Days of the Condor, too, that he didn't have any gun training, or he wasn't trained on those specific weapons. Do you guys recall the last time we saw a covert mission to Czechoslovakia?
I do.
What do you got?
Stripes?
That's right.
Come on, it's Czechoslovakia. We zip in, we pick them up, we zip right out again. We're not going to Moscow. It's Czechoslovakia. It's like going into Wisconsin.
Well, I got the shit kicked out of me in Wisconsin once. Forget it.
It's funny because the border checkpoints even look like the ones that Joe Flaherty is guarding in that movie. We get a training montage, target shooting, zip lines, explosives. Meanwhile, the CIA are going to the furthest extremes to locate the stolen data. We even see them exhuming Sarah's body and sifting through the dirt of her grave, which they needed her father's permission to do, and he's here and clearly furious about it. But he also knows what's going on in the background.
Yeah. Well, what if he just said no?
then they would find some other reason to dig it up.
Dig it up. They also like go through all of his food.
Right.
Like they're cracking open eggs and stuff. It's like, are they
definitely hid it in this egg?
Are they replacing the food so they don't, or does he just coming home to this like that his whole house has been torn apart? Well, I guess he's gone. He's not staying at home anymore.
Charlie is briefed on the main three terrorists. The bald terrorist is Luis Botaro. The guy who seemed to be making all the decisions is Horst Schraeger, and the girl is named Gretchen Frank. Later we see Sam's house crowded with agents. Sam tells Agent Porter that this treatment reminds him of Poland in World War II, and somehow realizes too late that the phone number of Molton, the man with all the government secrets, is written on a piece of paper right out in the open in the middle of his desk.
Mm-hmm.
Molton is brought in by the CIA, and they offer him unspoken exclusive material in exchange for his cooperation. Without hesitation, he hands over the code Charlie left with him, but explains that without the cipher, it's useless. Clearly, Sam has the cipher, which would explain why Molton's number is on his desk. Also, it would be much easier for the CIA to reverse engineer the cipher using the actual files and the encoded ones. They already know what the documents say, they just need a way of preventing them from seeing the light of day. Which, I mean, right now they've already prevented it as far as they know. If nobody has the information to get to the P.O. box, then they've already stopped him. Back at the training camp, Charlie tells Colonel Anderson, whose job it is to keep him here as long as possible, that he's done training and it's time to ship him off to Czechoslovakia. Anderson claims it's not up to him. Agent Porter quickly arrives at the conclusion that the cipher to the coded documents must be the digits of Sam's Holocaust tattoo. Took him 5 seconds to figure it out.
Yeah.
Turns out the decoded message is not the documents themselves, but the address of a safety deposit box in Molton's name. Anderson drives Charlie right up to the border crossing and leaves him to wait for a contact who will smuggle him over the line. Charlie is provided a countersign to exchange with his contact, but unfortunately, back at CIA headquarters, the team has emptied the contents of the safety deposit box. Brewer orders the assassination mission aborted, but it's too late. Charlie's already been handed off to his Czech contact.
August, Clipper here.
The package you were going to deliver. Get rid of it.
Too late. It's on its way.
It sounds like the CIA didn't take this update well because things are getting dark here, and Anderson is sent after Charlie and the Czech contact to fire on them with a rifle as they crest a snow hill. Charlie's guide is shot and apparently killed while he makes a run for it, and Anderson confirms he shot the wrong man.
Because they switched hats in the elevator for some reason. I think only to facilitate this moment.
That's a thing guys do, though, in elevators. If there's only two of you and you both have hats on, it's guy code. You got to trade hats.
The guy in there is just like, I like your hat. And he's like, oh, okay, here you go.
Cool. I like not getting shot by Colonel Anderson. Here you go.
Well, what I thought it was just like an intimidation. I like your hat. Oh, here.
Oh, it's yours. Please don't kill me.
Yeah, please don't turn me in because you could easily just turn me in for a reward.
The guy just has a collection of hats at home of all the agents he's killed. A passing patrol vehicle spots Anderson retreating back into the snowy woods and chases after him, giving Charlie a path to escape, where he follows train tracks to the nearest town. We cut to the office of Professor Lakos, played by Christopher Plummer, showing up now for the first time 53 plus minutes into the movie. His desk phone rings and his wife answers it, but he collects the phone from her with a kiss. Next, we see him arriving at the same border checkpoint where Anderson dropped off Charlie. Lakos is provided with the wallet of Charlie's deceased guide, and inside finds a photo of a smiling wife and child. Lakos speaks to the man, and his eyes flutter. He's still alive.
Yeah.
He shows the man the photo of his family and then tears it to pieces, presumably as a threat to force a confession, and we hear what sounds to me like the Czech translation of the word American. That's my best guess of what's happening here. So he's just like, yep, there was a guy, he was American. And what reason would this guy have to cover for the people whom he was doing a favor and who in return shot him in the back and left him for dead?
Yeah.
I feel like I would be like, CIA agent Colonel Anderson met me with a guy who needed to get into the country. Charlie eventually hides out in an empty church, but outside he sees military trucks pulling up and men with German shepherds. He makes a run for it out the back door, and the incoming soldiers find his discarded hat in the church to determine they are on the right trail. Charlie walks through the back streets of Krakowska, a move Professor Lakos has just predicted. Charlie locates a building and climbs the stairs to ring the doorbell of a specific apartment within. He picks the lock and moves inside, but nobody's home, so he sits and waits. CIA bosses Brewer, Porter, and Rutledge get a call at a lavish dinner party that Anderson lost Charlie across the border and it's too late now to interrupt the man's vendetta. Rather than send reinforcements to ensure Charlie's mission goes as planned, they order another hitman into the country to neutralize Charlie.
Get on to Prague. Contact Argus. Terminate with extreme prejudice.
That evening, Charlie awakens in the empty apartment to the sound of the homeowner returning. The person entering is not one of the terrorist targets, but a woman who knows his countersign, so she herself is connected to the CIA. She introduces herself as Elisabeth, but she speaks with a Swiss accent. She says she was recruited here as an opportunity to avenge the death of her husband, a poet and political prisoner. Unlike Sam, she hasn't felt that her work with the agency has done much to nullify her heartache.
I didn't bring him back to me, but it offers certain advantages.
Name one.
It fills my days.
With what?
With fear. It fills my days with fear.
I'm sorry, did you say advantages? They will both spend the night here together, and outside, various agents await their re-emergence, aware exactly where Charlie is spending the night. In the morning, he talks Elisabeth through the files of the 3 targets, and they leave together for the Russian embassy in search of a next clue. Surveillance teams outside the building report their motions to Professor Lakos. As Elisabeth drives Charlie around, she mangles various American idioms, and he feels compelled to correct her each time.
We are lucky that I know the city like the palm of my hand.
It's the back of your hand.
What?
You're doing pretty good.
Thank you. What's a slice of cake?
Piece of cake.
Dude, shut up.
Yeah.
You know what she meant. There's no reason to do this.
It's mansplaining.
They're tailing a man named Rodzenko, whose mistress is Charlie's female terrorist target, Gretchen. By coincidence, Rodzenko is also a code cracker with a penchant for Shakespeare, and he's come today to hear a speech from Professor Lakos on Bacon's bilateral cipher, named after scientist Francis Bacon, the same cipher described in the book that Charlie pitched Rutledge.
Bacon's bilateral cipher. This could be interesting. Rodzenko's a graduate of Moscow University. He's got a degree in Elizabethan literature. I'm writing a book about Elizabethan ciphers.
You?
Me.
A book?
A book.
Really?
Really.
But you seem like such an idiot. Bacon's cipher works a lot like modern-day binary code, except that the 1s and 0s would be replaced by 2 different but very similar typefaces, so that a sentence could be typed out with barely perceptible font changes, but when the letters of one font become 0s and the letters of the alternative font become 1s, they are broken into groups of 5 characters, and the 00101s and 00001s are translated into shorter coded messages within a longer text. Some scholars allege that portions of Shakespeare's First Folio, which we saw Charlie accidentally paraphrasing earlier, seem to contain messages encoded with Bacon's cipher, implicating him as at least a contributing ghostwriter of the collection, though as many, if not more, experts have refuted these allegations, pointing out that dozens of typefaces appear in the first publication, and the printing process by which the work was published would not have allowed for such intricate and intentional font swapping. The most damning evidence against the theory is that, aside from possible font wavering, no hidden messages have yet been derived from the text. It's like, that looks a lot like his code. What does it say? I don't know. It's a bunch of gibberish. Weird coincidence.
Drink more Ovaltine?
What the hell? In a large lecture hall, Professor Lakos analyzes text from the First Folio and points out sections he considers consistent with Bacon's cipher, and Charlie is fascinated. But his lady friend is less fascinated and offers to wait in the lobby for him. Just as she disappears, another man emerges from a nearby entrance and withdraws a pistol with a silencer from his coat pocket. Charlie leaps over the railing and races toward the speaker, and Lakos seems disturbed by the approaching man until Charlie turns to run out the exit nearest the stage. The gunman follows Charlie throughout the building and down into the basement. Alone together in a long corridor, the man fires a shot, striking a nearby pipe and releasing a jet of steam. After another minute of chase, Charlie gets the jump on him and puts a revolver to his temple, ordering the man to drop his weapon. The man admits quickly to being a CIA operative, and further, that his leverage has been sniffed out by his superiors at the agency, and killing him will only summon another assassin and another until he has been neutralized. Rather than simply admit defeat and surrender, Charlie shoots the man in the leg and runs out to Elisabeth waiting beside their car.
Yeah. I feel like this was like your best course of action. Like
He's not going to keep following you.
Yeah, exactly. He's not going to keep following you, and at worst, he's going to get arrested and discovered.
Yeah.
And that's going to cause like attention on him.
But you're not going to get in any more trouble than you already are for sparing this guy.
Yeah.
He accuses her of having abandoned him on purpose, but she nonsensically argues that she can't have been involved because they're both CIA agents themselves. What difference does that make? The guy that just tried to kill me was also a CIA agent. And he said straight up that they're going to keep after me until they get me.
This is the point of the film where I lose the plot almost entirely.
Yeah.
Because up until this point, I'm like, I get it. It's pretty straightforward. And now we're adding random character after random character that I'm not exactly sure who anybody is anymore.
I would point you to Hopscotch as an example. There's a lot of hidden information that the CIA doesn't want to get out. Walter Matthau is globe-trotting, trying to solve his own personal mystery, and they're sending agent after agent to stop him because they want to prevent him from publishing all this information. So
yeah, but
all the bad guys are CIA that are, yeah, it's just a little bit sloppier version of that same story.
Okay, sure.
We see the gunman rolled out of the building on a gurney. Elisabeth presumes her apartment is no longer a safe location and proposes a visit to her uncle Ludwig.
No.
Isn't your uncle remotely connected to you? Maybe we should go somewhere else.
Somewhere where you have no connection.
Yeah. That night, over wine, they fill Ludwig in on their situation. He seems optimistic that Charlie will find the people he's looking for.
It is
inevitable.
The next day, they skid up to a curb, and Charlie hops out of the car to tail Rodzenko on foot. Elisabeth offers to carry the fort, and he corrects her again.
I carry the fort.
No, hold the fort. Carry the day. You circle.
Charlie finds Rodzenko passing through a farmer's market and follows him all the way home that night to a log cabin in the wilderness. Here, Rodzenko is meeting covertly with Gretchen. Charlie's plan is to torture Gretchen for information on the locations of Botaro and Schraeger. Elisabeth asks if he's prepared to kill her if she doesn't cooperate, and he seems unsure. But they take the cabin hostage anyway, and when Gretchen proves predictably uncooperative, Charlie forces a poison pill into her mouth. Rodzenko tells Charlie exactly where to find both men as Gretchen struggles against taking the pill, but once she's swallowed it, Rodzenko begs Charlie to provide her with the antidote pill. Elisabeth stands there in shock at Charlie's determination to follow through, and instead, Charlie hucks the second pill into the lit fireplace.
Why was she here at all?
I don't know.
Why? Like,
maybe he needed help getting them together and tying them to the chairs.
Yeah, even so, you'd think you'd want to protect her identity. If you're not going to kill the other guy,
right? He's
going to try to find her. Now
yeah, why would you kill one of these people and leave the other one to come after you?
Why would he give them accurate information? Is my question. It's not like they can fact check this in the next 20 minutes and he thinks he's... You could tell him
I mean, we don't even know if he gives them accurate information.
But you could tell him literally... I mean, I assume because the movie proceeds as if he knows where the guy is. So, and he does. So he gave him accurate information, but he can't fact check this in the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, so just get him the hell out of your cabin.
Just tell him whatever you want to tell him and it would have had the same effect.
Right. Charlie and Elisabeth leave the cabin, and at this point, it was clear to me that the pill was a placebo to force their hands. But then we hard cut to Gretchen naked and intubated in an operating theater as a defibrillator is applied ineffectually to her chest. She is dead. He literally forced poison into her mouth and killed her there. I mean, good, but I did not expect that move from this character. He wasn't willing to shoot the guy who was trying to kill him earlier, and then he poisoned this woman. But she was more directly responsible for Sarah's death. Outside the operating room, Rodzenko and Lakos seem shocked by what's happened, and upstairs in the viewing gallery, Botaro and Schraeger observe the doctor's futile efforts in silence. Seems like that classic psychopath test for all of Charlie's other targets to have come here to watch her die.
Yeah.
You'd think Rodzenko at least would warn them away since he knows the man is coming after them next. Botaro relays Gretchen's last words to Schraeger. The assassin is from the CIA. Lakos is very confused to learn that the CIA man shot during his lecture at the university was perhaps shot by a fellow agent. Going through Elisabeth's personal effects in her apartment, Lakos finds the name and address of Uncle Ludwig and thinks the relative is close enough to be hosting the foreign fugitive. There are quickly eyes on Ludwig's place. Ludwig is now actively involved in the mission, providing recon of the hotels where Rodzenko claimed the remaining targets were hiding out. Ludwig has gathered that Botaro has a morning routine, which involves swimming at the hotel pool before opening hours when it's still closed to the public. The hotel pool is particularly interesting because there's a window under the water which faces into the nightclub next door so that bar patrons can watch swimmers pass by beyond the window. That night, Charlie visits the club and orders a drink while watching hotel guests swim by the window behind the bar.
It's super creepy, by the way.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like we've seen something like this before.
I've seen this before.
It
but...
was dolphins, but, you know.
No, there was that. And we did have someone watching with George C. Scott in the tank with the dolphin. But I think maybe Happy Birthday to Me had a scene where they were watching people swimming in a pool through a window in a wall. But I seem to remember one that was literally behind a bar like this. I don't remember what that's from. You know what? It might be in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
I was going to say it's either Kiss. I think it's The Nice Guys.
Oh, is it The Nice Guys? Okay. You're right. It is The Nice Guys.
Yeah, it might have been Kiss Kiss Bang Bang as well, but it for sure was one in The Nice Guys.
One of those Shane Black buddy cop comedies.
But I feel like it's super creepy because at some point I feel like maybe children would use this pool and then people in the bar are just watching children swim.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
And to even prove the point that it's awkward with adults, like some lady swims in and then like tries to go up to the window and then like awkwardly floats back up with these like froggy leg kicks, and I'm just like, this isn't sexy to watch.
And you can't even really, when we see from the other side of the window, you can't really see into the bar anyway.
Yeah, and it's really not an interesting pool. Like, it's all deep end.
Yeah, it's
like
literally only interesting if there's a person swimming by.
Yeah.
But I don't doubt that this is an actual bar. I would think that the pool behind this bar is literally just a tank where they pay dancers to go swim around behind the window.
Yeah.
It's not actually connected to a hotel. That would make
exactly.
sense.
That would make more sense.
Charlie spots another gentleman tailing him and moves to a storeroom at the back of the club. He pulls the classic open a window but don't leave bit, and the new assassin falls for it hook, line, and sinker before turning to leave. And we see Charlie behind a pile of boxes with his gun drawn in case it didn't go well.
Do you remember the last time we saw someone left an open window to trick someone into leaving?
We did it in Coma, I think.
Did we do it in Coma?
But that was a Patreon request. Or we're talking an 80s movie?
Yes.
With last time we what?
Someone opened a window to imply that they had left a room, but they were actually hiding in the room.
It was a restroom.
Yeah, it was the bathroom. It was
You got it.
Yeah, it was the guy and the girl and the they hid in the stall. What the hell movie was that?
It was an 80s movie for sure. It wasn't The Sting.
Oh, yeah, I guess it was The Sting, huh?
But he actually went out the window in The Sting.
No, he didn't. He was in the stall.
So he opened the window.
Oh, okay.
The guy went out, and then he left. But the guy wasn't. He didn't wait long enough. The guy was still there.
Yeah, the guy was still standing in front of the restaurant when he just ran by for no reason.
Yes.
Okay, but yeah, The Sting. I remember that one too. Back at Ludwig's place, there's a knock at the door, and when Elisabeth answers, Schraeger is standing there with a gun drawn. Charlie stays hidden in the storeroom until the bar has closed and begins assembling an explosive device utilizing a brick of plastique. The next morning, we see Botaro going for his morning swim, but from inside the closed nightclub, we watch Botaro swim past the bar window with a big black X duct taped to the glass. At the center of the X, the explosive device awaits Charlie's signal to detonate. Botaro spots the device seconds before it explodes, and he's close enough to the blast to be rocketed out of the water with blood gushing from his face, and then as the pool drains through the window into the club, Botaro smashes his neck against a corner of the bar, breaking it, but presumably he was already dead when that happened.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as like that bomb went off, I was like, well, that's just going to crush your skull.
Right, because all the water compacting around you.
Yeah, it's like, we just watched Das Boot. Like, this is what a depth charge does.
Basically.
And so when he comes out of the water and his face is already like blood coming out of his mouth and eyes and ears, it's like,
his brain is ruptured.
Oh, it was a good detail.
Yeah, absolutely. When Charlie gets back to Ludwig's place, the door is in splinters and the place seems empty until Charlie finds Uncle Ludwig dead in the hall. But with his last ounce of strength, he's written SCH on the wall with his own blood.
Schraeger.
I'm surprised that Charlie's plan was to detonate that thing from inside the bar and run. Because, like, couldn't they just run after him? Like, go after the dude with the soggy pants?
Yeah, but they would have to, like, they're in a basement pool at the hotel next door. They'd have to, like, put together what happened. Other than just assuming, I guess the window broke and something happened to the pool, because there was nobody in that room with him.
Okay, fair enough. So he books it out of there.
Yeah.
And goes back and finds his
what I think is weird is that
dead?
The door was destroyed when he got there, because that was the first clue that something was wrong. But they opened the door willingly for these people.
Exactly.
Why did they destroy the door on their way out, other than to hint to him? That...
and then he goes looking around, and it does this dramatic pause where he like bursts into the bathroom and the camera pans down to an empty bathtub. I was like, was this
why isn't there a person here waiting for him? That was the whole point of infiltrating this apartment. We cut to a train station, and Professor Lakos boards a train, taking a seat opposite a confused and suspicious Charlie. When Lakos learns Charlie is a fellow cipher expert, he hands over his own business card. Lakos recites a Shakespeare quote, but when Charlie identifies it, Lakos credits Francis Bacon instead. Right off the train, Charlie hops into a taxi headed for the Hotel Europa. Instead, the car drives up to a matte painting of an abandoned building, and the driver urges Charlie inside with a pistol before driving away. I feel like I just wouldn't go inside.
Yeah, exactly.
Why did you leave? Why did you give me the option of not entering?
When the taxi picks him up, the driver holds the door open, but he's got 2 fingers pressed to the glass. And I was like, is that the signal?
I don't know what
because it's a very weird move.
It is weird. Yeah.
That's how they do it there, wherever he is.
that's the
trust me.
Yeah. It's like when you order 3 beers and
right.
he's like no,
you got to hold out the fingers this way. This is how we say 3 in Germany. Inside the warehouse, Charlie moves about, gun drawn, and stumbles upon a weapons cache and a still smoking cigarette butt in an ashtray. Do you remember the last time we saw a still smoking cigarette butt as a clue that someone had been in a building?
It feels like a Charlie Chan kind of moment.
It's a haunted house movie.
Oh. Is it Hell Night?
No. So a woman is exploring a supposedly abandoned house, and she finds a cigarette in an ashtray in the kitchen.
The Nesting?
That's right. He nearly fires on a couple reflections of himself, and then he finds a warehouse overflowing with gaudy chandeliers. He climbs a flight of stairs to an office, and stepping inside, he's already at gunpoint.
Drop it.
The man seated in shadow leans forward to reveal himself as Colonel Anderson, here to finish the job and redeem himself with the agency after losing Charlie in the first place. Do you guys recall the last time we saw a character from the first act hold our hero at gunpoint and lean slowly into the light to reveal himself?
Sharky's machine?
That's right.
Oh, nice pull.
Hello, Sharky.
Hello, Smiley.
Charlie tosses his gun down, and Anderson explains just how badly Charlie has fucked everything up. He explains that Schraeger, the man who shot his girlfriend in the head, was actually a fellow CIA agent working deep undercover, and if he hadn't killed Sarah during the hostage situation, he would have given himself away. That's insane.
Yeah.
Because she was the only casualty of that event.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So the CIA killed the only casualty on purpose.
It seems like... I mean, I guess the dark side is that the CIA wanted at least one death.
But why would they pick a CIA agent's girlfriend?
They didn't.
Yeah.
I think it was meant to be at random.
They didn't have to be random. They were in charge of that situation. They could have just been like, let's kill the consul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we want to, as Americans, we can encourage them to install whatever consul we want for the next thing. Don't kill a CIA agent's girlfriend if you don't want the CIA agent to come after you. Anderson claims that Schraeger is now contemplating turning terrorist for real because he thinks the CIA are out to frame or assassinate him. He demands Charlie tell Schraeger the truth so that years of embedding Schraeger in this terrorist cell don't go to waste, and so that Sarah's death won't have been in vain. Bizarrely, they don't have to go that far to have this conversation with Schraeger because he's here, right now. He's upstairs in the same building. He's literally holding someone hostage on a balcony 20 feet that way.
Also surrounded by mirrors.
Right. Anderson calls up to Schraeger, who has Elisabeth hostage, and says Charlie is going to confess the whole truth to him now. Schraeger has no patience for Anderson's explanation, and everyone is quickly shooting at each other. Schraeger hits Anderson in the neck, so Charlie takes the man's gun. As he scans the warehouse for Schraeger, Charlie is distracted by dozens of reflections of the man in carefully staged mirrors throughout the building.
I just think this is... Okay, so I feel like it's a chandelier warehouse.
But it's also a mirror.
But it's
warehouse.
also mirrors, but we only just put frameless mirrors just leaned up against walls
Yeah.
randomly.
Yeah.
And the chandeliers are not in boxes. They're all just hung at different heights in this place. What is this place?
If I was going to have a store that sold mirrors and something else, it would be smoke, obviously. Because the name is built in.
Who buys smoke?
Oh, cigarettes. Like
No.
Oh.
I'm talking about
shop?
just
No.
Ziploc bags of smoke. Eventually, Charlie makes a determination which Schraeger is real and fires at the chain of a chandelier near the man as a distraction. Elisabeth takes the moment to run for it, and when Schraeger spins to follow her, Charlie shoots him in the back. Schraeger tries to raise his gun in response, but he falls forward through a skylight and back into the office where Anderson was waiting for Charlie.
Do you recall the last time we had our protagonist run through a hall of mirrors to find the bad guy?
I remember a hall of mirrors in
We had
Watcher in
one-
the Woods.
Watcher in the Woods?
Yeah, she's in like a hall of mirrors and she's seeing the reflection of the girl.
Because she keeps seeing reflections all the time, yeah.
Mhm.
I was also thinking of The Man with Bogart's Face, where he goes through... Or no, that wasn't a hall of mirrors. That was a wax museum. Oh, no, there was mirrors in there, too.
I think there was mirrors
Yeah,
in there.
because they start shooting the mirrors, and
Yeah.
the guy that runs the place is like, stop shooting the mirrors,
Yeah.
they're expensive. Was that the one you were thinking of?
I actually couldn't remember which one it was. I was hoping you would know.
Does that sound
I
right?
think that
like
is
same?
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
When he falls off that balcony, it's just like a sack of bricks.
Yeah.
Like it's not like a dummy with flailing limbs. It just falls straight through and just smacks and lands.
Yeah.
It doesn't bounce or anything.
Do you guys remember the last time we saw someone crash through the roof of a place and slap
Oh.
hard into the ground?
Yeah, what movie was that? It was outside of a hotel. Shoot,
He was butt-ass naked.
he was. I don't remember what movie that was, but I remember the scene vividly.
Dick flopping in the breeze the whole way down. You remember that?
Vividly.
He got spooked out the window by a ghost. I guess you could call it a...
Ghost story?
Yeah. Elisabeth returns and seems relieved to find Charlie has won. Professor Lakos and a large group of Czechoslovakian soldiers arrive, and we cut hours later once Charlie has provided his full testimony on the matter. Lakos admits that they assumed he was acting on the authority of the agency, but Charlie explains the truth of his personal and successful vendetta against these terrorists. Who is this Lakos guy? He's credited as Professor Lakos, but he's like in charge of the police?
Yeah, he seems to be like a high up operative in the KGB.
But he also is a figure an academic figure.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's maybe his cover or...
Yeah. It just seems weird that Professor Lakos is giving people orders and offering deals to foreign spies. Lakos makes an interesting offer here. He will cover up everything that's happened in the country and smuggle Charlie back across the border in exchange for an assurance that the discoveries with which Charlie blackmailed Brewer will be made public. Both men would like very much to see the agency take a black eye for what they've done here. Lakos is dismayed to learn that all Charlie's evidence was already intercepted by the higher-ups in the agency. But what he never mentioned to anyone is that a backup copy was stored in the databanks of a local diner arcade machine. I feel like it would have been in Charlie's best interest to mention to the CIA that there are more copies out there.
Yeah.
He might not have had to dodge so many assassins in the last week. Lakos has proven that he trusts Charlie by allowing him to leave with no leverage to force the publication of the agency's dirty laundry. After a stroll through the border checkpoint with a pair of newly minted Swiss passports, the camera floats up into a crane shot of the couple and an epilogue appears. Sam Kaplan retrieved the information from the Astro computer in the diner and sent it to Heller. Heller's book was published 1 year later. Heller and Elisabeth Vachilik are living under assumed names. Their whereabouts are unknown.
I find like written wrap-up summaries at the end of films very bizarre when they're not based off of true stories.
Yeah.
I also think it's weird that we're hearing Elisabeth Vachilik's surname for the first time in a sentence that ends with, are living under assumed names. It's like, just so you know, her name used to be this before whatever it is now.
And you know, what is this book, like, couldn't they just deny it? Like, it's just some random, like, how do you prove that this book is real because
I mean, it's the same thing as hopscotch. You know, you just have to trust that this is coming from the authority of someone that is a CIA agent, and other intelligence agencies who read it will be like, well, there's enough confirmable stuff here, stuff that we knew, that the rest of this is probably true.
Because his evidence was just a series of text on paper.
Right, yeah.
And it's not like he's including the real
He doesn't have
text.
sources. He doesn't have agent names.
Exactly.
The other thing that's funny to me is that Sam Kaplan had to do all this. Like, so he has a Swiss passport. He can't go to America.
Right.
But he can call Sam long distance and explain to him how to break into a barbecue shop and then open up. It's like, I can't tell my parents how to delete an email. And he's going to have to teach this guy to unscrew an arcade machine after hours and take out a hard drive and somehow turn that into information. That seems like that would be a nightmare. But I'm glad that they condensed the epilogue into one paragraph instead of like, after 6 months' work, he finally taught Sam how to extricate this information. But yeah, that's the amateur.
Well, it turns out I did know what was happening the whole time. It just wasn't great.
Yeah. I think it's fine. I think it's an interesting enough spy story. It doesn't make sense that he wouldn't tell them that the information was in multiple places. And also, the path to the information was not complicated enough because they immediately were like, oh, this guy's got it. Oh, here's the code. And it was like, really? You figured it out? He'd barely even left the country by the time you figured it out?
He's an amateur.
But he's not an amateur in the code world. Like, that should have been the part that he was very careful about.
Yeah.
And that was the part that he was the laziest about.
Yeah, it should have, deciphering that code should have been a red herring. Like, you get the code, but then you get nothing. Like, they go to the deposit box and there's like a letter saying better luck next time. Yeah.
So like they tell Colonel Anderson to go kill him, and then he kills the wrong person before they even get to the P.O. box and find out we don't have the information. So never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would have been better.
But then but then they need to let him, but they also can't let him continue the mission because they need Schraeger alive.
Right.
So, they would have to
interrupt it somehow, or
capture
stall him another
him,
way.
Yeah.
I feel like their next plan would be to try and lead him on goose chases within the country. And I, of course, assumed, as I think we're supposed to, that Elisabeth is like a honeypot that's leading him in the wrong direction. But she admits right up front that she works for the CIA, so that seems to not implicate her, because that would be a dumb thing to say right away if you didn't want him to know.
And it was a missed opportunity to try to leave like a hidden message for Professor Lakos.
Yeah.
Like in that, like Charles leaves him a message that only he could decipher.
Yeah.
Because he's obsessed with like the Francis Bacon cipher.
But I did like that they didn't turn Lakos into like a supervillain type character at the end. That he's just another smart guy,
right,
who's into the same stuff you are, and once he knows who you are, he will sympathize with your situation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's because it's one of those stories. It's like, it's so crazy. It has to be true.
Yeah. You're not making this up.
But what about the two freedom fighters who got away? I feel like there's some responsibility there too.
They were both CIA agents also. It's CIA agents all the way down.
It's like this news article where police officers were arrested because they were pretending to buy drugs from other police officers.
Yeah. I remember there was a great UCB sketch that we saw one time where it was like the DEA and the FBI and the CIA like were all performing sting operations on each other at the same time. Didn't they also do, I think we talked about it in our review of Deliverance, where they did like a Deliverance / cruising sketch on SNL where it turned out that the people that were pretending to be Hicks or people visiting the area going up and down the river were all like police from different areas that were pretending to be gay in a sting operation. And then like the one, like Harry Shearer was the only one who was an actual gay guy. And he's like, oh yeah, I left my badge back on San Francisco PD. But yeah, that's The Amateur. It's getting a remake very soon.
Yeah.
Comes out next year. But I will judge from the trailer whether or not that seems worth seeing. But I can see a version of this story being more entertaining than this was, for sure.
Well, I mean, it's a little like I mentioned Jack Ryan earlier, but it's kind of a Jack Ryan sort of story. Though I can't see Jack Ryan taking like this kind of murderous revenge into his own hands.
Yeah. I also feel like I don't dislike John Savage, but I feel like he's the wrong person to lead a story like this. Like you need like a shy heartthrob guy if you want to play it like he's like the amateur that's gonna suddenly turn around and be able to pull all this off and save the day. But he's kind of a weird looking guy a little bit. Whenever he does his ugly cries in the movie, I was just like, this is a strange looking person to be the main character of this film. But it's good.
Yeah. His knowledge of ciphers ends at being useful.
Right.
At the opening gambit of I got this information hostage.
That would have been cool if he'd used it in Prague somehow.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't play a part. Like he's not taking coded messages from the terrorists to try to figure out where they are. That it seems like you're not utilizing his potential.
That would have been a good way to reveal that this guy was a CIA agent planted in there, that he like decodes the information that they're trying to send to him to eliminate this guy. It's like, hey, he's after you. He doesn't know that you're with us, and you got to kill him.
Oh, and he decodes the message on his own?
And he decodes that message and figures the whole thing out, and then decides to shoot him anyways because he killed her. And, you know, like, I think it had potential to be a good movie. I just don't think it was.
I would say, even though I did enjoy parts of it, and I think a remake could work, this is probably a thumbs down for me.
It's a thumbs down for me.
Yeah, it's a thumbs down. It held my attention, but in the end, it was just very ho-hum.
Yeah. Letterboxd, what are we thinking on this one?
So I'm going to put it at 14 out of 17. It'll be below One from the Heart and above The Seduction.
I have it at 10th, which puts it below Night Crossing, but above Butterfly.
I have it right in between you guys. I have it in 12th, which puts it under The Seduction and above Splits. Our director here was Charles Jarrott. Before this, he directed The Other Side of Midnight, Last Flight of Noah's Ark, and Condor Man, and then almost exclusively TV movies after this. The novelist and writer was Robert Littell. He also has a credit on the 1988 film Zits, about a group of kids who sell fake military plans to the KGB. That sounds right up your alley, Richard.
Yeah, that sounds great.
It sounds like one of your smoking ace, or what was the Aces, Flying Aces? What is the movies that you like, the 4-part Jet series?
Oh, Iron Eagle?
It sounds like an Iron Eagle plot. Almost like the Henry Thomas one, Cloak and Dagger type story.
Yeah, for sure.
Littell also has a credit on the upcoming remake of this film, obviously. There's another writing credit here for Diana Maddox, who previously wrote The Changeling. The music here came from Kenneth Wanberg. He previously scored Tribute, and later he scores Losing It, Of Unknown Origin, and The Philadelphia Experiment. The cinematographer here was John Coquillon. He previously lit Straw Dogs, Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, and so far on the show, The Changeling. Later he lights The Osterman Weekend and Hypersapien People from Another Star. The editor here was Stephen Fanfara. He previously cut Happy Birthday Gemini, didn't recognize much after. John Savage was Charles Heller. Before this, he was in Deer Hunter, Hair, and The Onion Field. We've seen him now in Inside Moves and Cattle Annie and Little Britches. Later, he's in Do the Right Thing and Godfather Part 3, but more recently, he's shown up in Bosch Legacy. You catch him on there? You watch that show, right?
Yeah. Who is this again?
John Savage, the lead.
Oh, John. I don't remember him on Bosch.
He plays Bosch, it says. No, that's not true.
I haven't actually finished all of Legacy.
Oh, okay. Christopher Plummer played Professor Lakos. He was Captain Von Trapp in The Sound of Music. He's Raymond Swan in Inside Daisy Clover. We've had him in Somewhere in Time and Eyewitness, I think, was the last time. He's a voice in An American Tale and Rockadoodle for Don Bluth. He's a Klingon in Star Trek VI. He's in 12 Monkeys. He's a voice in Up. And more recently, he was Harlan Thrombey in the first Knives Out film. Marthe Keller played Elisabeth. Before this, she appeared in Marathon Man, and we saw her last in The Formula. But before and after these two titles, it's a lot of foreign work I didn't recognize. Arthur Hill played Brewer. Before this, he's in Rabbit Run, The Pursuit of Happiness, The Andromeda Strain, Future World, and A Bridge Too Far, and he's back this season for Makin' Love. Nicholas Campbell played Schraeger. Before this, he appeared in The Omen, A Bridge Too Far with Arthur Hill, The Spy Who Loved Me, and The Brood. We've seen him so far in our minisode review of Virus Day of Resurrection, and after this, he shows up in The Dead Zone, Naked Lunch, Cinderella Man, and Goon. You ever see Goon?
Never saw Goon.
It's really funny. I never saw the sequel, but the first one was...
It's a hockey movie, right?
Yeah. George Coe played Rutledge. Before this, he'd appeared in Stepford Wives, Kramer vs. Kramer, and as a performer on the ground floor season 1 of Saturday Night Live. We've seen him now in The First Deadly Sin and Bustin' Loose, and he's back this season for The Entity. Later, he was a regular on Max Headroom. He's Adam Sandler's dad in Apatow's Funny People. He's Wheeljack in Transformers Dark of the Moon, but probably my favorite role from him was as Woodhouse, the Hobson/Alfred, to Sterling Archer's Arthur/Batman on FX's beloved spy series Archer. John Marley played Molton. He was Frankie Ballou in Cat Ballou, Phil Cavallari in Love Story, film director Jack Woltz in The Godfather, who wakes with a horse head between his sheets, and Max Burns in Hooper. We've seen him now in Tribute, and later this year he's back for Motherlode.
He's just got such an interesting face.
He does, and I feel like him and Alex Rocco get the most work out of that whole Godfather crowd as like mafioso types and old school gangster characters. Ed Lauter played Anderson. We've seen him so far in The Longest Yard, Loose Shoes, and Death Hunt. He also shows up in The French Connection 2, King Kong 76, Real Genius, The Rocketeer, and True Romance. Miguel Fernandes played Botaro. We saw him first as Roberto Assanti, the kidnapper of the president in The Kidnapping of the President, and more recently as half of the haunted house squatting Bate brothers in Ghost Story. He was Khan, the head of the prison gang in MacGyver episode The Escape. Remember that one? With Q?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Jan Tríska played Rodzenko. We saw him last in back-to-back Paramount period pieces, Ragtime and Reds. After this, he shows up in The Osterman Weekend, Nothing Lasts Forever, and 2010, The Year We Make Contact. He's also the assassin in The People vs. Larry Flint, whose imprecise aim landed Flint in a wheelchair and permanently affected his pattern of speech. He also shows up in Apt Pupil and Ronin. I was going to say Christopher Plummer's in Apt Pupil, but he's not. It's Gandalf is the one in Apt Pupil, right?
Yes.
Graham Jarvis played Porter. He previously appeared in Bye Bye Braverman, and so far on the show, The Out-of-Towners, Cold Turkey, and Middle-Aged Crazy. He's back later in Mr. Mom and Misery, among many television appearances. Jacques Godin played Argus. That's the assassin from the university. He's almost exclusively French titles outside of this, nothing I recognized. Chapelle Jaffe played Gretchen. She was Valerie Martinelli in The Kidnapping of the President, and the redheaded lady in Silence of the North. Later, she shows up in The Dead Zone, Millennium, and The Butterfly Effect. But yes, Chapelle Jaffe, I think that means that she is teamed up again with Miguel Fernandes. They are the two terrorists who kidnapped the president, and they are on the same terrorism team again here. Which makes sense. It's a Canadian film. They're both Canadian. That one actually took place in Canada. Lynne Griffin played Sarah. Before this, she's Claire Harrison in Black Christmas. After this, she shows up in Curtains and Strange Brew. Is that with Christopher Plummer?
Yes. Also.
Okay.
No. That's Van Sydow.
That's Van Sydow. Okay. More recently, she shows up in The Boys, Season 2, Episode 5 as Lois, an old friend of Billy Butcher's Aunt Judy, and then, last year, as the grandmother in Eli Roth's long-awaited Thanksgiving film. Vladimír Valenta played Uncle Ludwig. After this, he appears as the mayor in The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Vlasta Vrana played Guide. That's the guy who gets shot on his way up the hill. Before this, he'd been in Shivers, and so far on the show, Happy Birthday to Me as the bartender, in Gas as Baron Stuyvesant, one of Sterling Hayden's boys, and a barbarian leader in Heavy Metal. He also shows up as the voice of a street vendor in the much-maligned Heavy Metal 2000. He's also a general in Red 2, the sequel to that geriatric spy movie. Lee Broker played Sharp-Eyed Man. He was Security 1 in Scanners last season. Teddy Moore played Newscaster. She was Miss Shields in A Christmas Story. She was also the CEO of OCP in the 2001 RoboCop series Prime Directives, which is a series of 4 feature-length RoboCop TV movies. You ever seen any of those?
No.
It's not Peter Weller as RoboCop.
No, I wouldn't think so.
George Buza played Terrorist Number 4. This is the last member of the team who doesn't get to say much in the film. He's back soon, credited as Kazam Tribe in Quest for Fire. He's Mean Gene in Meatballs 3. And in the 94 X-Men video game, Children of the Atom, he voiced Colossus, Omega Red, and Juggernaut. Later, in the animated Spider-Man and X-Men series, he has provided the voice of Dr. Hank McCoy, and even his IMDb photo resembles Kelsey Grammer's portrayal of the character.
Yeah. He had also appearance in the first X-Men 2000.
Right, I was just going to say.
The truck driver who drops off Rogue.
He was so connected to the material that he was even brought in to play a trucker in the opening scenes of 2000's X-Men film, which I believe is the earliest Marvel film with a tangential link to the canon MCU, since they both have Patrick Stewart's Professor X. Booza's latest credit is a reprisal of the Hank McCoy voice for Disney Plus's resurrected X-Men animated series, X-Men 97. So if they're both canon, he might technically play two parts in the MCU, which is a rare distinction. George R. Robertson played the U.S. consul. He's uncredited as Lou Comfort in Rosemary's Baby and Richard Stout in the first Airport film. We'll see him next in Murder by Phone, but he's probably best known as Chief Hurst in all of the Police Academy movies except for Mission to Moscow. He also played Dick Cheney for friend of the show Cyrus Nowrasteh in his miniseries, The Path to 9/11. John Kerr played CIA security guard. He was Francis Barnard in The Pit and the Pendulum. Guy Sanvito played news vendor. He plays the locksmith in Silent Partner, also starring Christopher Plummer. I think the locksmith, that's when Elliot Gould accidentally locks things in the safe that he stole from his own bank.
Okay.
And then he has to have the locksmith come in and open it so that because he lost the key.
Right.
Because he put the key in the mustard jar in his own refrigerator and then his maid threw it away.
Yeah.
Robert Beatty plays Ambassador Neville. We saw him last as Dr. Ralph Halverson in 2001 A Space Odyssey. He's back later in Superman 3. In Labyrinth, he's the left door knocker, and then he's the president in Superman 4. Henry Gomez played Master Sergeant. After this, he shows up in Videodrome, The Dream Team, and Tommy Boy. Erin Noble played Waitress. She's back as Deneen, D-E-N-E-E-N, in Class of 1984 later this season. And Lisa Schrage played Teenage Girl Number 1. We'll see her again in Prom Night sequel, Hello Mary Lou, Prom Night 2, as the titular Mary Lou. Mary Lou from Prom Night 2 played Teenage Girl Number 1 in this film. She's also Alex Reed in Food of the Gods 2. So she's in a couple great sequels that everyone loves, Food of the Gods 2. I think that's everything for The Amateur. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, you can find all our socials at linktree/vintagevideopod. If you enjoy what we're doing, consider giving us a review on iTunes. I don't think it helps visibility, but it's good for morale. And if you really like the show, maybe you should join our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast for access to all our 70s reviews and a hand in choosing next month's film. Patrons are currently choosing between Black Eye, The Black Windmill, Chosen Survivors, Daisy Miller, Dirty Mary Crazy Larry, Flesh for Frankenstein, The Holy Mountain, Huckleberry Finn, The Lords of Flatbush, Madhouse, The Mutations, Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, and Zandy's Bride for a 50th anniversary review next month. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing The Beast Within, which IMDb describes like so. A young woman gets raped by a mysterious man creature, and years later, her son begins a horrific transformation into a similar beast.
Oh no.
We leave you now with the trailer for The Beast Within.
Warning. This preview cannot show all of the terrifying and grotesque transformation sequences from the last 30 minutes of The Beast Within. The filmmakers strongly suggest that those who may be shocked by this unique, horrifying movie use caution when seeing the film. There's something inside of Michael.
Never seen anything like it before.
Something that's been waiting, watching, and growing.
Michael?
Something evil.
I know you're in here.
And whatever it is ready to be released.
I came back for them. All of them.
And now no one is safe. You have been warned. You are dared to remain calm during the horrifying final 30 minutes of The Beast Within. Even you may not survive. You have been warned.